The Forgotten Trail. My name is Noah Parker. I've spent most of my life hiking. I've crossed deserts, climbed mountains, walked through forests that stretched for miles. But nothing has ever frightened me the way Hollow Creek Trail did, because according to every map I could find, it shouldn't have existed. This happened in Colorado during the fall of 2022. At the time, I was 28 years old. My best friend Mason and I had planned a 3-day hiking trip through a remote section of the Rocky Mountains. The area was beautiful. Dense forests, steep hills, crystal clear streams, exactly the kind of place we loved exploring. On the second day, we found something strange, a trail marker, old, weathered, half buried in dirt. The words were barely readable. Hollow Creek 2 miles. I unfolded my map. The trail wasn't there. Neither was Hollow Creek. Mason thought it was interesting. I thought it was weird. Neither of us realized we should have turned around. Instead, we followed it. At first, the trail looked normal, narrow, overgrown, rarely used, but after 20 minutes, something felt wrong. The forest became unnaturally quiet. No birds, no insects, no wind. Only our footsteps. The deeper we went, the heavier the silence became. Then we found the town. At least that's what it looked like. A small collection of houses hidden deep among the trees. There were maybe 15 buildings. Every one of them looked abandoned. The paint was peeling. Windows were broken. Porches sagged toward the ground. It looked like nobody had lived there for decades. "Who the hell built a town out here?" Mason asked. Neither of us knew. The strangest part was that none of it appeared on any map. We explored for nearly an hour. Everything was empty. No people, no vehicles, nothing. Then we entered the church. That's where things changed. Dust covered everything. The pews, the floor, the altar. Yet one object looked untouched. A guest book. Curious, I opened it. The last entry was dated October 14th, 1978. Every signature stopped on the same day. Every single one. As though the entire town vanished overnight. That's when Mason found a newspaper. The headline read, "Local town evacuated after missing person cases." The article was incomplete. Most of it had faded away, but one sentence remained visible. Residents report seeing familiar faces standing among the trees. A cold feeling settled into my stomach. We decided to leave immediately. The sun was already setting. We followed the trail back, or at least we tried. No matter which direction we walked, we kept returning to the town, again and again and again. As darkness fell, panic set in. Then we saw lights, inside one of the houses, a house that had been empty earlier. Someone was inside, watching us from the window. The figure never moved. It simply stood there, staring. We ran. That was when we realized something horrifying. Other figures were appearing, in doorways, behind fences, inside windows. Dozens of them, standing completely still, watching. Every one of them looked human, but none of them moved. None of them blinked, and none of them seemed alive. Then Mason whispered, "Noah." I looked at him. His face had turned pale. One of the figures standing across the street looked exactly like him. Same clothes, same face, same expression. Then I noticed another. It looked exactly like me, and it was smiling. We ran into the forest. Branches tore at our clothes. Roots tripped our feet. Behind us, footsteps echoed through the darkness. Hundreds of footsteps, following. For hours we ran, until suddenly we burst onto a highway. Police found us shortly afterward. When we explained what happened, they exchanged strange looks. One officer finally spoke. "There used to be a town called Hollow Creek." My heart stopped. "What happened to it?" The officer hesitated, then answered. "It disappeared in 1978. Mason and I never spoke about that trip again. 2 years later, I searched for Hollow Creek online. Nothing. No records, no photographs, no maps. It was as though the town had never existed. Sometimes I convinced myself it was all a hallucination, a mistake, a bad memory. Then I remember one thing. When I returned home after the trip, I checked the photos on my camera. Most were normal, except the final picture, the one taken just before we escaped. Standing behind me was another version of myself, smiling. The end, the lantern between the trees. My name is Ryan Foster. I've spent most of my life outdoors, camping, hiking, fishing. If it got me away from cities, I was interested. That's why, in the fall of 2024, I agreed to spend a weekend in the mountains of Montana with 3 friends. It was supposed to be a simple camping trip. A few days in the wilderness, a campfire, some fishing, nothing more. Instead, it became the reason I no longer enter forests after dark. It started with a warning. We stopped at a small diner outside a town called Mill Creek before heading into the mountains. The place was nearly empty. Just a few locals drinking coffee. While paying for our food, my friend Josh mentioned where we were going. The waitress immediately stopped smiling. "You're camping near Alder Ridge?" she asked. Josh nodded. The woman looked uneasy. Then she said something strange. "If you see a lantern in the woods at night, don't follow it." We laughed. She didn't. "People around here have been saying that for decades." "What happens if you follow it?" I asked. The woman stared out the window. "You don't come back the same." None of us knew what that meant. We didn't ask. Looking back, we should have. By late afternoon, we reached our campsite. The forest was beautiful. Tall pine trees stretched across the mountains. The air smelled of rain and pine. Everything felt peaceful. That evening, we sat around a fire telling stories. The group consisted of 4 people. Me, Josh, Eric, and Tyler. We'd been friends for years. Around midnight, we finally turned in. The first strange thing happened at 2:17 a.m. I woke up for no reason. At least that's what I thought. Then I noticed a light moving through the trees, a small yellow light, far away. At first I assumed it was another camper, but something felt wrong. The light moved slowly, steadily, like somebody carrying an old lantern. I watched it for nearly a minute, then it disappeared behind the trees. The next morning I told the others. Josh laughed. Probably another camper. That explanation made sense, so I let it go. The second night was different. The lantern returned. This time all 4 of us saw it. The light appeared between the trees shortly after midnight, far beyond our campsite, moving silently through the darkness. Nobody could see who was carrying it, only the lantern itself. We watched for several minutes. Eventually it vanished again. That's when Tyler made a joke. "Maybe it's the ghost from the diner story." Nobody laughed. Something about the light bothered all of us. The third night changed everything. Rain had moved into the area. Fog drifted through the forest. Visibility was terrible. Around 1:30 a.m., the lantern appeared again. Only now it was closer, much closer, maybe 50 yards away. The light remained perfectly still, waiting, watching. It felt almost intentional, as if it wanted us to notice it. Josh grabbed a flashlight. "I'm going to see who's out there." I immediately told him not to. Something about the situation felt wrong, but Josh was stubborn. He started walking toward the light. Eric followed. After several seconds, Tyler followed too. I reluctantly joined them. The lantern began moving deeper into the forest, slow enough for us to follow, fast enough to stay out of reach. For nearly 20 minutes, we walked through the trees. Nobody spoke. The forest had become unnaturally silent. Then we entered a clearing. The lantern stopped. In the center of the clearing stood an old man. At least I thought it was an old man. He wore a dark coat. His face was hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. The lantern hung from one hand. For several seconds nobody moved. Then the man slowly raised his head. I wish he hadn't. His face looked wrong, pale, thin, almost corpse-like. And his eyes... There were no eyes, only darkness. Pure darkness. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run. The figure smiled. Then the lantern went out. The clearing became completely dark. People often ask what happened next. The truth is simple. Panic. Pure panic. We turned and ran. Branches whipped across our faces. Roots nearly tripped us. Nobody knew where we were going. We just wanted to get away. Eventually we reached camp, or at least what we thought was camp. But something wasn't right. The tents were gone. The fire pit was gone. Everything was gone. The clearing where we'd camped looked untouched, as though nobody had ever been there. Tyler started panicking. Josh kept insisting we'd reached the wrong location. But deep down, all of us knew the truth. We hadn't. The forest had changed. The next several hours were a nightmare. No matter where we walked, we couldn't find the road, couldn't find the campsite, couldn't find any sign of civilization. Then we started seeing them, people, standing between the trees, watching us. Men, women, children, all carrying lanterns, all completely silent, every single one smiling. By dawn, there were dozens. They never approached. They simply watched, waiting. The moment sunlight finally appeared, everything vanished. The people, the lanterns, the strange figures. Gone. Shortly afterward, we found a road. A ranger discovered us walking along it, exhausted, terrified, confused. He asked one question. "Did you follow the lantern?" Nobody answered. The ranger sighed. Then he told us something I'll never forget. According to local legend, there was once a settlement deep in those mountains. In the late 1800s, dozens of people disappeared. The only thing witnesses reported seeing beforehand was a lantern moving through the forest at night. Over the years, similar stories continued. Missing hunters, missing campers, missing hikers. Always the same lantern, always the same warning. Never follow it. We left Montana that afternoon. None of us ever returned. For months, everything seemed normal. Then strange things started happening. Eric claimed he occasionally saw a lantern outside his bedroom window. Josh reported seeing lights moving through nearby woods. Tyler stopped answering calls altogether. 1 year later, he disappeared. Completely. No note. No explanation. No trace. Police never found him. The last message he sent to our group chat arrived at 2:14 a.m. It contained only one sentence. "I can see the lantern again." That was 3 years ago. Nobody has heard from him since. Sometimes I wonder what happened to Tyler. Sometimes I wonder if he followed the lantern one last time. But mostly, I wonder why every now and then I wake up in the middle of the night and see a faint yellow light moving slowly between the trees behind my house, a light that always disappears the moment I look directly at it, waiting, patient, as if it knows that sooner or later I'll decide to follow.